the Qur'an's power to encapsulate massive messages in small chapters, maybe never articulated or displayed better than in Surah al-Asr. In terms of just the depth of meaning, the layers, how much the scholars of tafsir wrote on it, expounded upon it, expanded from it.
A very like a more contemporary scholar of the Qur'an from Pakistan, Dr. Sar Ahmad Rahimullah, passed away now. He wrote a book on just the meaning and the philosophy in Surah al-Asr. It's like over 100 pages.
And the surah itself, 3 verses.
That's
3
it.
verses.
100 pages, 3 verses. Ajee.
In the spirit of that surah,
Yeah.
and this session,
We're recording a 30-hour video.
we're recording it. We're gonna be here. It's a telethon.
It's a telethon.
No, in the spirit of that surah, I wanted to get brief but powerful reflections
Yeah.
from both of our mashayikh here, inshallah, about this surah.
Yeah.
And really, I mean, we hear it so much. If we're going to be honest, we probably recite it in our prayers. Our kids recite it. You know, if I'm ever leading a congregation and I know there's children there, maybe they're off school, I always pick the shorter surahs just because I don't want the kids to be standing there like going back and forth. Surah al-Asr is a go-to because it's short, people know it, but the meaning is so powerful. So powerful. Shaykh, start us off. When you're reading Surah al-Asr as an individual, as Shaykh AbdulNasir Jangda, what are you thinking about when you read Wal-Asr?
Yeah. I mean, just the meaning of the word, and that's why the Asr prayer is that time of day, because the whole idea is the daytime is slipping away.
Because, again, time could have been like dahr.
Yeah.
Right? So
which means a very long period of time.
Yeah, but this specific...
Asr refers to like when the day is slipping away. It's like the analogy is of an ice cube melting.
Oh, subhanAllah.
Yeah.
It's like what remains at the end, like Asr, Nichorna.
Yeah. Asid, yeah.
Asid, right? Juice. Every time you look at it, it's less.
Yeah.
Yes.
You look away, look back, it's less. It's less.
Yeah.
And that's actually what it feels like when you're in
And
Asr.
that's why the emphasis on Salat al-Asr is there even in amongst the 5 daily prayers.
Doing it early
And just there's just a lot of emphasis on it.
Yeah.
It's even though Fajr is like the tough one, but Asr is the stressful one.
Yeah.
You know? Even the window of Maghrib is shorter than Asr.
Yes.
But Asr is the stressful one.
Yeah.
Because it just feels like it's slipping away and you got to get so much done before daytime slips away. But you also got to get that prayer in. That's why the Prophet said somebody who can take care of Fajr and Asr, they'll go to paradise.
Especially for the Hanafis.
Yeah.
Because you're like really cutting it.
Yeah.
But it's one of those things, subhanAllah, where at the most busy part of everyone's day,
Yeah.
right, the end of it, if you look at between 3:30 to 5:30 p.m., you're trying to wrap up stuff. Kids got basketball practice. You know, your daughter's got to be dropped off at gymnastics or swimming or whatnot. You got to go there, go here. Dinner's got to be prepped. But that's where you got to stop and pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
And that's the meta-ness of the verse, is that it's basically right there. Life is like Asr prayer.
SubhanAllah.
Life is always going to be busy. When you're a kid, it's busy. Then when you're a teenager, it's busy. Then when you're in college, it's busy. Then when you get a job, it's busy. Then when you get married, it's busy. Then when you have kids, it's busy. Then when your kids get older and your parents are now needing help, it's busy. Then when you get old, it's busy. It's always busy. Yeah, but you just got to make time for Allah in the middle of the busyness. And if you never learn how to just make time for Allah in the busyness, your life's never going to get easier. It only gets harder.
And the Ghazali says that, you know, if you think of prayer as something that takes away from your time, you're misunderstanding it. Right? Prayer is the thing that adds substance to your time. It's almost see it as like a refuel.
Yep.
You feel like you're running out of time, you stop and pray, and somehow, some way, you find barakah present after that moment.
Absolutely.
Shaykh AbdulNasir said that you have to learn to make time. I like that phrase so much because otherwise we get caught into there's no time. So learning to make time for Allah in itself is a skill. It's like a person who has to learn.
One could say, make time for the one who created.
To make time
for the one who created time.
Allahu Akbar.
Allahu Akbar.
I just, as the
There's a t-shirt with that on it, right? Is that where I saw that? I'm forgetting. But making time.
A healthy uncleism is always good.
It's always very good.
Yeah.
Necessary.
Yes.
Yeah.
You know, and just remember the bank of Allah. So, Mufti Saab, but going back to that point, everyone has the same 24 hours in a day.
Yeah.
And so the idea that some people are just simply like more blessed with their time versus others, it's really about this skill, isn't it?
Making time.
The ability to make time.
Because when you make time for something, it's intentional, it's purposeful. You're committed to that being a part of your life, that adding value to your life. Like a person going to the gym.
Yes.
Everyone can say they don't have time, but you got to make time for it.
Yeah.
And when you do start making time, there's a little bit of adjustment here and there, and it becomes a part of your day. And the days you don't go to the gym, you feel empty.
Yeah.
Some people struggle with making time to eat even. Like they don't have time to eat. That's the truth. They don't get it. Or cook.
Yeah.
But then you realize that if I don't have time to cook, I'll be eating garbage.
Yes.
So I have to make time to cook so I have a good, meaningful meal.
There you go.
And
another one that's popular, Mufti Saab, just because we're in that topic, is people who don't spend time with their families because they're too busy.
Man.
But they don't realize that even 15 minutes with the phone away.
Quality time.
15 minutes. That 15 minutes before, after dinner, whatever it might be, that pays how many dividends later in life?
And that's the whole point of Asr. Salat al-Asr, there's a little bit of a discussion and ikhtilaf about Sunan Qabliya, but there's still a difference of opinion.
Yeah.
If there are even Sunan Qabliya, but they're definitely Ijma'an, there's no Sunan Ba'diya, which what all that means is, like Fajr, you prayed the two before, everyone agrees on that. Dhuhr, you pray before and after, everyone agrees on that. Maghrib after, everyone agrees on that. Isha after, everyone agrees on that. Asr, there's like a major difference of opinion. Is there anything before? But everyone agrees there's nothing after. And the point of this that I'm trying to make there is, it's about the quality, not the quantity.
Yes.
So time itself, how much time you're making. If I open up a Qur'an, a Mus'haf, and I sit there in front of it like this for 3 hours, that means nothing.
Yeah.
But if I read it with my mind and my heart and my soul for 10 minutes,
5 minutes.
it's life-changing. And so you're talking about family as well. If I just sit around with my kids in the room on my phone for like 2 hours, who cares?
You lost and they lost.
Everybody.
And it was a waste of time.
But if I sat, looked in their eyes, and had a real conversation for like 10, 15 minutes, oh my gosh.
You know,
It means the world.
I read something the other day that actually killed me, subhanAllah. They said that your kids don't have the emotional complexity to come and say that I want you to spend time with me. So they say, can you come play with me? When they want you to spend time with you. You know, adults, hey, we haven't caught up in a long time. Let's get together. That's like a mature, complex way of saying, like, I miss you. Your kids don't have that ability. They can't come up to you and say, I miss you. It's very vulnerable, and sometimes emotionally they're not there. So they say, can you come watch me play? That's their way of saying, I miss you. And so when they do that, and like in the midst of it, we have our phones, or we're like, oh, I'm busy. The message you're sending to that child is not, you're playing this, I don't want to spend time with you. And a lot of us this month of Ramadan, subhanAllah, you know, this is one of those things. You have to leave with commitment. You have to leave with resolutions about certain things. And if this month teaches us anything, is that it's a time to go back to basics. And there's nothing more foundational than making sure that you have some time every day with your family.
Conversation.
If we know there are things that need our attention, by not giving them attention, those things don't somehow solve themselves.
Or disappear.
They don't disappear.
Yeah, they just become compounded.
If I don't make time for the Qur'an, my relationship with the Qur'an will always be fractured. If I don't make time for my kids, I can't, force them into submitting that it's okay that he's not spending time. Like the wrong is the wrong, no matter how much reason or logic or whatever thought I have behind it. And that's why in the next ayah, Allah Azza wa Jal says, "Innal insana lafi khusr." Khusran is losing out on something. Possibly the opposite of fawzan, right? Like one is victory, the other one is a loss. And khusran al-ni'mah, and we use it in bay' as well, the word khasara, that when there is a transaction and a person has a loss in it, and then there's like the worst form of the loss, like a very bad loss in a transaction, we call that the ghaban. Like ghaban, bay' ghaban. Possibly a qadi may come and overturn if someone sold a pen for $1 million. Hey, you fooled this person. Allah Azza wa Jal says, "Innal insana lafi khusr." In this trade that you're doing, because you have to sell your time to something. You're making a transaction. You are prioritizing something. Something's getting a priority. By not doing it right, you're facing loss.
And because the next ayah has istithna, right, this exception, the understanding is that this is actually the place where most people will lose. Right? Innal insana lafi khusr. Illa alladhina amanu wa amilu salihat. So everyone, generationally, from the beginning of time, now, after we die, continuing, every single person will be in a state of loss. This is the default.
Yeah.
Except, and this is where like the ears of a believer perk up, because they're like, I want to make sure that I'm part of this exception. الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا وَعَمِلُوا الصَّالِحَاتِ وَتَوَاصَوْا بِالْحَقِّ وَتَوَاصَوْا بِالصَّبْرِ. Those people who believe, those people who do whatever good deeds they can.
Right.
And then they hold each other to the standard of truth and of patience and perseverance. There's a narration, or there's an athar about this surah, that when the companions would be departing from one another, they would read this surah to each other.
Yeah.
And they would almost use this as like a way to remind each other.
Yeah.
Like almost like a wasiyah in that moment.
Yeah.
Why would they do that? What's the effect of this? Like if we left each other right now and we said, "Wal asr innal insana lafi khusr," what's the effect that has on the heart of a person as they're leaving each other?
I think it's like multi-layered. Obviously, it's very, as we use the word in the Arabic, like in the sciences, Islamic sciences, jami', right? It's bringing together all the major themes that one needs, right? Faith, good deeds, good actions. So be a good person. Believe in Allah. Believe in what you need to believe in. Try to be the best kind of person that you can. Be a good person, and then stand and support the truth. Right? Always be on the right side of history. And then being on the right side of history is not always easy. So then support each other and be strong.
There we go.
So, I mean, that pretty much is...
What is tawasaw bil haqq? So tawasaw is mufa'ala. So you have two people encouraging, motivating, inspiring, to working together. When that part of the ayat shows us that the journey of life and being a Muslim is not an individual. We're not an individualistic society. There are individual elements to our faith, but there are also collective aspects. So we're working together. Tawasaw bis sabr, that be there for one another in times of patience. That part of the ayah is just phenomenal. And it's so clear on how we can act on this, that if you see someone struggling, there was one sister who had a challenge with one of her pregnancies, and she called me and said, "Shaykh, I think her words, I don't think I'll be able to bring my baby home to the room I decorated for her." Wow. Right? That's her way of saying that, it's not going to her anyway. So then she said, and I was like, man, I'm so sorry. May Allah reward you and everything. She said, "Look, Shaykh, I think I can pull through it." These are her words. And when someone's in that much pain, they're not fronting. They're not like showing off. She said, "I think I can pull through whatever's awaiting me. But there's one question that I need answered. If I get this answer, I think I can pull through this difficulty and whatever awaits me. If I can't, I don't know." And I said, "What is it?" So she says that someone said to me that earlier in my life, I didn't wear hijab, so Allah was punishing me for that act of mine. And when I heard that statement, I thought to myself,
it's crazy. When you're this old and something can still shock you.
Yeah.
That's wild.
It's like there's a person lying on the ground in pain, and someone comes and says, "I'm going to take these steel toes and jam them in their face."
I'm waiting for your answer to the story, because I have something that needs to be shared about this problem in the community.
Yeah.
What did you say?
My answer to her was never, impossible. That is, who dares speak on behalf of Allah? How can you ever attribute intent to Allah? That's like an aqidah disaster.
Man adlamu mimman kadhaba ala Allah.
And you know what's interesting? It's mostly people who identify as religious who say this stuff.
Yeah.
It makes no sense. And the interesting thing is, they don't understand that Allah's jaza and His, hisab, or His, the punishment and His reward, it's not linear like that.
Yeah.
That's such a simple understanding of how things work. Allah's not transactional. If you pray Fajr one day, Allah doesn't give you $1 million. If you miss Fajr, Allah takes away your house. That's not how this works. It's making the relationship with Allah so cheap. And Allah promises. التَّائِبُ مِنَ الذَّنْبِ كَمَنْ لَا ذَنْبَ لَهُ. The person didn't wear hijab early on, puts it on. Okay, that's a form of tawbah. So now you're saying that the effects of that are going to somehow linger and capture her in a moment? Makes no sense. People have to be very careful, man. With people who say things like this, you may unknowingly be pushing a person outside of Islam.
Yeah.
You have to be super careful.
Yeah.
How many people on the Day of Judgment are going to show up and say, "Yeah, that's the one, that's the lady, that's the man, because they said this to me or whatever, made this whatever, that I didn't feel close to Allah." And now you're going to have to answer. Allah's going to say exactly what you just said. Why did you speak on my behalf? That's not at all. Maybe the reason why Allah Ta'ala tested this woman or any person who went through this is because there's a hadith that says that child will be pulling the mother into Jannah.
يَجُرُّ أُمَّهُ بِسَرَرِهِ.
Yeah.
SubhanAllah. Maybe that's the reason why. Maybe, potentially. And again, we don't deem ourselves to know
And
why
it's just,
Allah does certain things.
and you know,
But why go negative?
Yeah.
Is my point.
and the thing is, you said like,
They keep going, karma. It's like Muslims gave up our own creed and we gave into the creed of karma, that if we did something bad, there must be an accountability in the world. That's not our deen.
I mean, the Prophet ﷺ lost children.
It's embarrassing.
And I was going to say,
embarrassing to go back to.
it's like an outward appearance of like adherence to Islam. And I'm not saying this as like a plug for what we're doing here, but it's like a way for us to be able to share with the community why we're doing this and why we do a lot of what we do. It's because there's an outward adherence to the religion, but there's a profound absence of knowledge and understanding of what the religion actually is. They don't understand the message of the Qur'an. They don't know basic enough seerah to know that the Prophet ﷺ lost children. That's crazy.
The emptiest vessels echo the most, right? So they say that when people have nothing, they make the most noise.
Jo badal garaj se wo barasa nahi.
Allah. Listen, you should have done a theme throughout the recordings. Every line, one.
One Urdu line. Yeah, we should have.
SubhanAllah. But, and I will say this, SubhanAllah, Shaykh, your point is spot on. And I will say this, I think that the secondary responsibility is that if you don't know, just make dua for somebody.
Just be quiet.
Just make dua for. May Allah make it easy for you. May Allah give you strength.
We're supposed to be working together. Tawasaw bis sabr.
Yeah.
The Qur'an is saying, like, work with one another towards patience, because sometimes the path to patience needs a team member.
And sometimes you don't have to say anything. Just be present.
Yeah.
You know, an arm around the shoulder, a shoulder to lean on, shoulder to cry on even. You don't have to come up with the perfect thing.
And isn't there a time and place for everything too? Let's say, for example, you're someone that's convinced that maybe this is a result of whatever. Are you following me? Let's say that you're convinced.
Maybe a person is struggling in business, but they cheated everybody for 50 years in business. But maybe the point to bring that up to them is not when they're being...
when they're down and out.
Yes.
When they're down and out.
It's not the time. It's not even appropriate.
It's not your place.
It's not your time.
It's not your place.
But the point that you're making, Mufti Saab, and we can wrap this up here because again we're trying to commemorate the shortness and the brevity of the surah. But the idea of tawasul is very important.
Yeah.
And I love the fact that you said this because this is really, I think Ramadan also kind of instills this idea of community, which is you can't go it alone.
I was actually going to say another very interesting kind of symmetry or like trend in the surah, because again the style and the substance is plurality is present in the surah. In the insana, right? Amanu, amilu, as-salihat, tawasaw, and then tawasaw. They're all plurals. And they're all like, so it's emphasizing like the groupness, the collectiveness. And that's exactly, I'm going to give back to you here, that in Ramadan, sometimes unknowingly, unintentionally, we experience like a really awesome level of community.
Yeah.
And the day after Eid, we go back to living on an island.
Yes.
And that's why we all need each other, what you were saying.
One of my earlier teachers Arabs have a way of being so like beautiful with their language.
Yes.
He used to tell us, he used to say, because he would give khataras in the masjid, he would say, don't make the masjids orphans after Eid. Like you gave the masjid a family, don't abandon the masjid, now it's an orphan, right, after the day of Eid. And I think people, what they discover and they find out, the value of being around Muslims, and they attribute a lot of what they feel almost to like this limited time offer. And it's true, Ramadan is a mubarak, it's a blessed time, but you can recreate some of that experience if you invest in spending time with each other.
100%.
And you hold each other to truth and to patience. May Allah Ta'ala give us this and everything that we've talked about. May Allah Ta'ala make this a blessed series. I know we're concluding with this, and we hope that Allah Ta'ala accepts from us and that He makes it a reason that people come closer to the Qur'an. And may Allah Ta'ala continue to give us reflections on His book as they are never ending. And may Allah Ta'ala allow us to always act on the reflections that we have. Ameen.